Getting you some insight into new San Francisco 49ers pass rusher Bryce Huff, and a guy who saw a lot of him last year with the Philadelphia Eagles. Maybe not as much of him as people thought because he wasn't on the field all that much. Louis DiBiase to help us out from Locked On Eagles on today's Locked On 49ers.
You are Locked On 49ers, your daily San Francisco 49ers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On 49ers. Brian Peacock and Eric Crocker with you as always at BD Peacock, at Coach Crocky. Thanks everybody for making us your first listen on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. If you're new to the program, welcome. We appreciate you. And subscribe. We would love it if you subscribed on YouTube or anywhere you are listening to this podcast. And hit us up in the YouTube comments as well. Let us know what you want us to get into. And we got some great topics coming up this summer as we get ready for training camp. And today we're talking about the newest San Francisco 49er, a guy who should provide some rush off the edge, even though last year, a little bit of a bust for the Philadelphia Eagles. And our guest, Louis DiBiase of Locked On Eagles, to help us break this down. First of all, Louis, appreciate you jumping on with us to help us break down who Bryce Huff is and why he was such a failure, apparently, for the Eagles last year in Vic Fangio's scheme. And I want to have you on because I did notice that you said something to the effect of that Bryce Huff has an opportunity to bounce back and that maybe it just didn't quite work and possibly that Vic Fangio was out on him very early. And I'm wondering why that is and why the fit was so bad for someone like Vic Fangio, but might be so good for Robert Saleh.
Yeah, I think Bryce Huff failed in a vacuum of what the Philadelphia Eagles expected him to be. I think they saw an ascending player they could get for cheaper than what Hassan Reddick wanted in a new contract that was going to cost, top 5 edge rusher money. And they saw Bryce Huff, who in 2023, efficiency-wise, was pretty much the best pass rusher in football when he was on the field. Double-digit sacks, had the highest pass rush win rate of anybody that year. They said, we can get this guy at like $16, $17 million a year annually because he's ascending, get this contract done a year early than a year late, rather than pay somebody like Reddick, $25 to $30+ million a year. Huff didn't become that every down player the Eagles wanted him to be that could do it all, that could be a stand-up edge rusher, that could help against the run, that could also get to the quarterback. I still think if you use him like the New York Jets did, like Robert Saleh did, who of course we now know is reuniting with Huff in San Francisco, and you use him in obvious pass rushing situations where his hands are in the dirt and his one job is to go get the quarterback, I still think he can be a really efficient pass rusher, but the Eagles wanted him to be more. Vic Fangio wanted him to be more. And I think they found out pretty early on in the offseason, early on in the process, that he just wasn't that guy. So I just don't think it was the right marriage between the scheme and the player and the role. But I do still think if you just want Huff to go get the quarterback, I still think that's in him. I mean, 2 years ago, he was an incredible pass rusher. I don't think that suddenly is gone after just one season.
I'm on social media, and after last night, Peacock and I, we had a conversation about Bryce Huff and his production win rate. Like, what did his pass rush win rate look like? And I said I put more stock into that than the amount of 10 sacks that he had a couple years ago. Well, come to find out, win rate's pretty impressive, right? In 2023, he had 240 pass rush snaps, and his pressure percentage rank was first in the NFL. And that was obviously with Robert Saleh. Now, 2024, surprisingly, pressure percentage ranked 9th in the NFL. The issue is only 89 snaps. So that may be kind of what you're alluding to, them wanting him to be more. And he's like, look, I'm just a pass rusher. So you want me to set the edge and do these things or spill and do all these other things. That's not quite me. But you want me to get to the quarterback? I can be that. Philadelphia was paying him to be more. Hopefully the 49ers are saying, well, we drafted these young guys. We have some running stuffers. We can put Williams in slide them inside to that 3 tech. We just need you to be that pass rush guy that comes in on third downs or obvious passing situations. And by all accounts, it looks like that's where he thrives.
Well, and I will say, too, after the bye week, after the first 4 games, and I was at that Cleveland game right off the bye, they finally started to use Huff more in that, hand in the dirt stance, go get the quarterback. He was only playing on, third, third down situations, obvious pass rushing situations, second and longs. And I actually do think he was starting to get to the quarterback more, but then he also suffered a wrist injury that kept him out for the end of the second half of the season. And by the time the playoffs rolled around, he was a healthy scratch because Nolan Smith broke out as a ascending star player. Josh Sweat was leading the team in sacks. Rookie Jalix Hunt was really starting to heat up. So Vic Fangio liked that three-man rotation he had. So by the time he got healthy and ready to go for the playoffs, he already wasn't Fangio's favorite guy, and so he ended up being a healthy scratch throughout into the Super Bowl. So I still think, again, it depends on the role for the player. I still think he can be a good pass rusher. It just, wasn't the right marriage. The Eagles were expecting more. They thought he was going to replace Hassan Reddick, and he wasn't. So they moved on quick. They just knew it wasn't the right fit. But I don't want to just sit here and blame Huff and just call him the next, big time free agent bust that Howie's had in the past, like a Nnamdi Asomugha, and that's dating it. That's going back. But I still think he's a good player.
Oh, was Howie around in the Nnamdi Asomugha?
Oh, yeah, that was his first stint before Chip Kelly got rid of him. Yeah, he signed Nnamdi, and they've had some.
That was the dream team.
Yeah, that was the dream team. Yeah, I think this was honestly Howie's worst move, and he's hit on a lot, so it's saying something. But since like Jalen Reagor in the first round of the 2020 draft, this was probably his big investment since then that just didn't work from the jump. But again, I think this is a player that San Francisco, with Robert Saleh, like that's the guy that got Huff to be one of the best pass rushers in football just a few years ago. So I think I don't think it'll work in San Fran.
That's fascinating to me. I wasn't expecting to talk about Howie Roseman so much in this episode, but those are some of the biggest whiffs of our time. Thinking about Jalen Reagor and Nnamdi Asomugha, but a guy that's been so good at putting together a football team, so not afraid to pull other triggers after missing and having job security, which is important. And obviously you mentioned multiple stints there, so he's highly thought of. And I wonder if part of it was the analytically driven? Were they looking at his pass rush win rate? Well, like, this guy's too good not to be able to give money, and we don't have to give top money to him as a free agent in Bryce Huff.
I actually think Howie Roseman still kind of believed in Bryce Huff. They asked about him at the end of the season, and he said, I'm still bullish on that signing. But they trust Vic Fangio so much, and of course they should. He brought the youngest defense in the league to the number 1 ranked defense in football and was a main reason they won a championship. So I think that they really trust Fangio's opinion, and Huff just wasn't a Vic guy. I just don't think he fit in that scheme. And so Howie Roseman, you have to have job security to, take an L that quick and move on. But I do like that he did say, hey, this just isn't the right fit for my defensive coach, so I'm going to move on. Because I think a lot of GMs across the league would be stubborn, bullish about how much they invested in this player and try to make it work again for years, even if it's just not going to work. And I think Howie knew, even if Huff can be a good player, it probably won't be in Philadelphia. And he just took the L and he moved on. He has the security to do that. That's the one thing. Not everybody in the NFL has that luxury.
Speaking of Howie, would you say that the Eagles won this trade by just being able to get a draft pick, whatever that pick is and whatever it ends up being? Or was it going to be straight up cut? Because
probably
a lot of people that think that Huff is just complete garbage that are some Eagles fans, and they think that Howie was amazing to even be able to get anything and actually fleece the 49ers in this deal. For Robert Saleh, he's probably like, look, we got a guy who I know that's going to be able to rush the passer for us, even in a rotational role, and we don't have to pay him the big money that he got paid last offseason.
Yeah, I don't think the 49ers got fleeced, because if you told me that Bryce Huff this year had 6 to 10 sacks with Robert Saleh in that defense, I wouldn't be surprised at all. But for the Eagles, it's definitely a win because they had no leverage. Everybody knew that Huff was on the outs. They have Jalix Hunt emerging and Nolan Smith. They brought in Azeez Ojulari and Joshua Uche. They drafted Jahad Campbell in the first round. I think he's going to play more inside linebacker, but played some edge rusher at Alabama. His real focus with that defense is going to be to go after the quarterback. So they have a lot of pass rushers. There really wasn't a spot for Huff. He didn't show up to voluntary OTAs, so the fact that they got any sort of draft pick compensation and some cap relief at this trade by a result is a win for me. But I don't think this is Howie Roseman did it again. He took the 49ers to the woodshed, because I do believe Huff can be a good fit in that defense, and he was just 2 years ago.
One more quick question I have for you, Louie, and thanks again for jumping on to break down your perspective of Bryce Huff. And obviously Huff wasn't showing up to the offseason stuff. Did he shut it down? Was that part of it as well? And part of why some Eagles fans are mad at him, because maybe he was like feeling like a guy that wasn't a glass eater for a team that was trying to win a Super Bowl?
I don't think Huff wanted to be in Philadelphia anymore, but I think they knew this trade was coming, and I think it was more of a team organized thing. I don't think Huff was starting to hold out. I do think it was only a few days before the trade, so the team had probably informed him. Huff did post on Instagram a picture of him like with the peace sign, so I think that's where Eagles fans are a little annoyed. They don't like when players want out no matter what, even if they're justified. But yeah, I think it was more of a team-led thing with him not showing up to OTAs.
Fantastic stuff, Louis. Appreciate the insight on the Philadelphia Eagles version of Bryce Huff, and hope he's a lot more like that Robert Saleh 2023 version of Bryce Huff for the San Francisco 49ers. And you guys can always check out Louis' stuff. He does fantastic work. Not just Eagles. He talks about a lot of other things as well. So find him at DiBiase, LOE, Locked On Eagles host daily. Appreciate you, Louis. Thanks, man.
Thanks, guys.
All right, next, let's talk a little bit more about Bryce Huff. I want to get Croc's opinion on the swagginess of the number 0 that he was wearing, and I think the jury's still out on number 0s around the NFL. I'm not sure if I'm in on it. I want to talk about Croc's stint on Locked On 49ers as well, and where the sack distribution is going to come from on this 49ers defense. Next. This episode of Locked On 49ers brought to you by LinkedIn and LinkedIn Jobs. As a small business owner, your work doesn't end when the clock hits 5. Your business is always on your mind, which means when it's time to hire, you need a partner that works just as hard as you do. That's where LinkedIn Jobs comes in. When you clock out, LinkedIn clocks in. LinkedIn makes it easy to post your job for free, share it with your network, and get qualified candidates all in one place. And LinkedIn's new features help you write job descriptions, quickly get your job in front of the right people with deep candidate insights. And LinkedIn knows that you're wearing so many hats as a small business operator, so they make it easy and streamlined for you to put your job in front of the right people, reach those qualified candidates. And there's no wonder 72% of small businesses say LinkedIn helps them find quality hires. So post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedonnfl. That's linkedin.com/lockedonnfl to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply.
So while we were, in that discussion, we got a little bit of an update on Bryce Huff from women's former teammates Brandon Graham, as he was on the Ross Tucker podcast, and he had this to say about Bryce Huff. He said, "With the Jets, it was just that defense, man. I know what it's like playing in that 4-3 wide 9, go get it every play. It's always stop the run on the way to the quarterback. That's a slogan in that type of defense. I feel like it's all scheme. I mean, I've seen different guys flourish in different systems, and then you see him get in another system, and it's different. And what they asked of Huff this year, it just wasn't a great marriage, I would say, because I know Huff can rush. I see him doing all that, but sometimes it's just different with the type of scheme and what people ask of you, they want you to be able to do. And maybe it just wasn't that for Vic Fangio. I just know that Huff's a baller, man. And hopefully for him, I want him to be on a winning team and win for him. In this case, I'm going to be happy if he's here or somebody else. I'm going to be happy if it's here or somebody somewhere else for him to be able to go show what he can do in these prime years of his. So a lot going on there, but essentially what Graham said was maybe the Eagles just weren't a great fit for Huff, but he's a guy that can play and he can rush the quarterbacks.
And when you think about what Bryce Huff is, in more of a rotational pass rusher, speed rusher, off the edge, handing the dirt, get him out wide, let him go get the quarterback. And we think about, and I know Vic Fangio's scheme has evolved, but you think about his days with the 49ers and those 3-4 outside linebackers, those edge guys were big and physical. And it was all about being a beast up front. And maybe Bryce Huff just is not that and wasn't a good fit. And when you look at the numbers and the analytics of it, it all points to that same story that maybe it just wasn't quite right there. And hopefully there is a motivated Huff. And I know Robert Saleh trusts him or else he wouldn't be with the 49ers right now. And hopefully he can get the most out of him. We see that 10-sack guy and that number 1 pass rush win rate aligned in the wide 9 scheme. He was wearing the number 0. What do we think about the number 0? Croc, just league wide real quick, because I know you're big on numbers. You're big on how players look and wear their uniforms. Is the number 0 a hit for you right now?
for whatever reason, it hasn't been a great look in the NFL. In college, it's been fine. High school, I got a kid right now that wears number 0. It's looked good, but for NFL, I don't know if it's the jersey type or what, but it just hasn't looked as sweet.
It looks
So,
it looks
big guys though. Sometimes a guy like him wearing that single digit number, even if it's number 0, sometimes it looks good, better on them than it would on somebody like, let's say, Samuel Womack, who's just smaller, or Renardo Green, who's smaller, but you kind of feel that 0 a little bit more. It's an odd number because of the shape of it.
Yeah.
But I don't know. The jury's still out on number 0.
I think the jury's still out. I like it on Renardo Green. I think size is really important for single digits. I remember when defensive players were first able to wear the single digit numbers, the big guys. And I think it was Melvin Ingram was wearing like number 6. He was like, no, get that.
I think it was number 8.
Yeah, it's way too much space on a big body with a single digit number, whether it's 0 or whatever. It's like, that I don't like that at all. I actually kind of like 00. I wish they allow people to wear 00. I think that looks better than just 0 by itself. So we'll see. Jury's out on that. More on Croc bringing swag to this podcast. I want to congratulate you, Croc, on 4 years here at the Locked On Podcast Network. I can't believe it. I think we've now turned the corner to where I have been doing this podcast with you longer than I was doing it solo, because I was doing it solo for 4 years. And then you came on because I've been here for 8 years. You've been here for 4 years now. So now every time we do a podcast, I've been doing it longer with Peacock, than I was doing it by myself. So congrats on the 4 years, Croc. And I appreciate you doing this podcast with me every day. And especially when we're getting into June now, that's why I really wanted to bring on a co-host. It's like, man, I'm going to go through another June by myself. I don't know if I want to do that. Right. And so I appreciate you hanging out, talking ball with me every day. It's been fun every single day.
Now, it was really cool looking at a lot of comments because I retweeted the Locked On post of it being my 4-year anniversary. And there are a lot of people saying, dang, it's been that long. And it has. I think it's a surprise to me. I know that I've been on the podcast since 2021, but even seeing that 4-year number, I'm like, wow, I've been with my guy Peacock for a minute now. So it's fun. It's been cool seeing us kind of, grow together on the podcast. And I'm ready to, just ride this out as long as possible. So hopefully I reach year 8,
And I don't know if I should take offense, because one of the fans is like talking about how you brought swag to the podcast, and I was like, "Geez, okay." I thought I was bringing something for the first 4 years, but I guess it was really it was like that element was really missing, and now you brought it, Crocky. So you needed the show. Thank you.
You got the voice, man. I feel like the voice by itself, man. You got the nice beard. You got the grays poking it through now. I think there's a lot of swag right there.
Dude, 8 years. I was not a father 8 years ago. The hair was it was no grays in the hair, no grays in the beard. The quarantine, like a COVID happened throughout that time. The quarantine 15 came and stayed, which I'm still fighting off, which that was being a little bit frustrating here for me. But my golf game's gotten better. That's about the only thing that's improved. And I think the podcast has improved, bringing Croc on in the last 8 years. So that's good.
A lot of transitions in our personal lives as well.
Yeah.
I mean, I know you moved a couple times to Sac area, to the Bay Area. I was in Arkansas, moved back here, coaching, not coaching, all that stuff. So a lot of transitions between our lives as well. But we're here every day. Let's go.
Hey, we're still here for you, and Croc's still going to be here with you every day, even though he's head coach now, Stag High. I can't wait to see your team come together. I know you got a lot of practices, and you were at one practice earlier, getting a pod in. Now you're going to do another practice, and I can't wait to go watch some of your games and check out the squad that you put together here in the program that Coach Crocky is putting together at Stag High in Stockton. So I'm pumped on that.
Yes, sir.
Next, Croc, let's talk sack distribution, some stats for Huff, and kind of driving home the point of why he might be a lot better in Robert Saleh's scheme and better with the San Francisco 49ers than he was last year, and where the sacks might come from on the San Francisco 49ers defensive front now. Next. You brought up a stat a little bit earlier with Louis, and I want to read that one again, and I believe it was the one from Kyle Posey, right, of Niners Nation, that he dropped on Twitter. And the difference between Bryce Huff's usage from 2023 to 2024 when rushing from the wide 9 alignment. So lining up out wide and going after the quarterback. In 2023, he had 240 such snaps in wide 9 alignment, like he'll have with the 49ers, and he did with Robert Saleh there in 2023. And his pressure percentage ranked first in the NFL, number 1. That's over everybody in a wide 9 alignment. Number 1 over Bosa, who was top 4, by the way, in both of the last 2 years in wide 9 rushes. So talking about the number of rushes he's going to see a lot. He's going to see top 5, probably numbers, volume, and potentially could rank top 10 and maybe even number 1 in the league in pressure percentage there, right? And even in 2024's bad season, he only had 89 of those such snaps instead of 240, but he still ranked top 10. He was 9th in pressure percentage on those wide 9 alignments. So there's something to that. And the quote from Brandon Graham that you mentioned, Croc, the all gas, no brakes, and just getting off and getting after it seems to be something that really fits with Bryce Huff more than the reading, reacting, more than some of the other things he was asked to do with Vic Fangio. And I think that's one of the reasons why you might see an uptick in sacks from 49ers first round defensive end Mykel Williams, and potentially even some of the interior guys they drafted as well. So I'm excited to see how this comes together. And clearly that extra pass rusher was needed. And Robert Saleh at least believes right now that he has found that guy now in Bryce Huff to help bring some of the heat that the 49ers have lost in recent years across from Nick Bosa. So you got a trade addition, you got a first round pick at defensive end. And actually, I want to bring up a couple more stats here really quick. Did I have? Yes, here it is. Okay, so, and you can see why Bryce Huff made a lot of money in free agency, by the way, when you start looking at where he was post-2023 season. According to Next Gen Stats, this is an old post from before last year started. Bryce Huff led the NFL in 21.8% pressure rate last season. Huff all in 250 pass rushes is the minimum. So it was over 250, 240 of those, as we know now, were from wide 9 alignment. And he also led the NFL in pressure rate in 2022 as well, and with a minimum of 150 pass rushes. So he didn't have as many pass rushes. He kind of earned more and more and more as he grew as a player with the New York Jets. So we're talking top of the league pressure rate in Robert Saleh's scheme for back-to-back years. Now, the volume of rushes was a little bit different, which is why the sack numbers were a little bit different there. And here's another one, which is really important for specifically Robert Saleh's scheme, Croc. According to Seth Wilder of Next Gen Stats, fastest average pass rush get-off, so the time across the line of scrimmage for a defensive lineman or a pass rusher, per Next Gen Stats, Bryce Huff with 0.67 seconds, number 1 in the NFL, ahead of Myles Garrett, Josh Sweat, TJ Watt, Justin Houston, Trey Hendrickson, Carl Lawson, Von Miller, Yannick Ngakoue, Robert Quinn. So his get off, what I'm kind of putting together here is don't make him think about it. It's like, okay, you're on the field. Guess what? It's a passing down. It's 3rd and 8. Your job, Bryce Huff, is to get off the ball and get to the quarterback as fast as you possibly can, all gas, no brakes. That's where Bryce Huff shines, and that's what Robert Saleh is going to ask him to do.
And luckily for the 49ers, drafting a guy like Mykel Williams, that's all he's going to have to be, right? Just that guy that just screams off the edge. And those are the kind of guys that I've been, clamoring for the 49ers to get. D4, we got to see a glimpse of it when he was with the 49ers. And now you get a guy, clearly, I mean, it's not us just saying, oh, yeah, this is what he does, and he's this fast edge rushers. I mean, you just brought the facts to the table for a guy who has an elite get-off. That's what we're hearing here. So, I'm all for leaning into what guys do well, and it sounds like this is a guy that gets upfield very well. I think the more we talk about it, the more we hear stats like that, things like, it just makes me love this trade even more, regardless of what the 49ers had to give up.
Right. And the fact that they don't have to pay the full price of what that would cost. And, whatever that mid-round draft pick ends up being and what that looks like, Robert Saleh believes that he's fully worth that. And so when you talk about price and what it costs for top edge rushers, like, maybe he's a bargain, and he's not going to be asked to do the heavy lifting. Like he knows the role, and he's a rotational guy, and he's going to be paid like a rotational pass rusher.
One thing I will say is you got to know what you're paying this guy for and what he's doing, right? And you just alluded to it being a pass rusher. So if you see a guy getting blown off the ball in the run game because he's kind of out there in a situation that's not ideal for him, don't blame him. We know what he is. That's what we're finding out. Philadelphia Eagles told you what he is and what he isn't. And they were paying him to kind of be a little bit more. He's not that. He is a guy that is here for the pass rush. So I don't want to see any stats pop up about how bad Bryce Huff is against the run. He could be last in the NFL. I don't care, because clearly that's not what he's here for. He's here to get upfield and get to the quarterback right now. Now, if he's not giving you that value, then that's when you have an issue. But hey, man, give me, 8+ sacks, 9, 10, 10+ sacks, and he's not great against the run. I'm fine with that. You gotta be good with who people are. There was a time where I got good with who Jimmy Garoppolo was, where other people were kind of still struggling because they wanted him to be more. Like, no, he's this, and I think Jimmy does a good job at being that.
Yeah,
right? I'm not going to ask him to be more than that. All right, and Bryce Huff, it sounds like he's good at this one thing. I will not be asking him to be this great run stopper. Put somebody else in there. That's when I'll blame the coaching staff. Coach, they should know now what he's good at and what he's not good at as well.
And then you kind of look at that with rotation, what it looks like. And obviously Nick Bosa is a stud. He's an every down player. By the way, if Bryce Huff has 10 sacks this year, that would have led the 49ers. Nick last year. Nick Bosa only had 9 sacks last year. I knew it wasn't the best year. He only played 14 games, but he only had 9 sacks. Leonard Floyd is really the production you're trying to replace off the edge sack-wise. And he had 8.5 sacks for the 49ers last year. And I don't really think we felt Leonard Floyd as a presence of like, oh, okay, this is like an overwhelming pass rushing presence on this 49ers defense. So I think that should be in some ways replaceable. And then you drop all the way down to 5 sacks from Malik Collins, 4 from Yetur Gross-Matos, 3.5 from Kevin Givens, 3 from Sam Okuwanu, who are still around. Nobody else had more than 1 sack on the 49ers defense. That was the biggest problem, I think, on the 49ers defense. When you start looking at this, They did not get after the quarterback all that well, and they weren't a great run defending defense. So it's like, I don't blame them for blowing the whole thing up and having 5 new starters this year and a new defensive coordinator in Robert Saleh, right? Like when you look at it that way. And so whether it's Mykel Williams rushing from outside and inside, whether it's some of the rookies getting in there trying to provide a little bit more of a push from the interior of the defensive line, whether it's Nick Bosa just by himself having a lot more sack production, and now Bryce Huff potentially being able to get you 6, 7, 8, 9, even 10 sacks again as a rotational player. I think that's really important. And the 49ers are going to be a better run defending team. I think, you're going to might be playing. There might be some growing pains with some young players. So you do need some veterans that can step up even if it's a rotational role and have a big role. And when you do get the third downs, you got to get off the field. And that's where Bryce Huff comes in for this team. Who do you think has the second most sacks after Nick Bosa?
Oh, man. I mean, it's going to have to be Bryce Huff because, again, knowing what guys are, right now, Mykel Williams isn't a big sack guy. And I think the 49ers had a glaring weakness for a couple years now. They just have not been great against the run. And you brought him in, first and foremost, to be a terrific run stopper. Like, be that guy. But he is young, still developing. We understand how some of these guys are utilized in the Georgia defense and kind of the rotation with some of the guys. So there's probably still more growth and potential and ability for him as a pass rusher. But I would assume with Bryce Huff, you bring him in to do this specific thing is because, hey, man, we want all of our bases covered with this defensive line. I like the D-line a lot more now with that signing because now I don't feel bad for having to put Mykel Williams inside as a 3-tech in pass rush situations. So if you just told me right now, hey, it's 3rd and 8, what does that defensive line look like? And I say, oh, man, you got Nick Bosa, you got Collins or West, you got Mykel Williams, and then you got Bryce Huff. How do you not like that? But in that scenario, Huff would be the second leading sack guy for the 49ers.
I need 30 sacks from the top 3 guys combined. And that might be asking a lot. But Bosa had 9 last year. You got to project him 12 to 15 sacks, right? So now between, say, Huff and Mykel Williams, and Mykel Williams, remember, he had the ankle all year at Georgia last year. So I think there might be a little bit more there, and I think there will be a higher volume of just snaps that he plays for the 49ers, rushing from the outside, bumping inside and rushing over guards as well. So, and he had 5 sacks last year. I think he should be able to at least duplicate that. There's going to be a higher snap count. So 5, 6, 7, 7.5. Can you go 15, 7.5, 7.5 between Bosa, Bryce Huff, and Mykel Williams? Is that too much to ask? 30 sacks from the top three guys?
I think you can get that. I think you can get that from those three guys. Now here's the thing, right? You talked about some of the sack numbers from last year. Can the others be a little bit better? And one of the best defensive seasons that the 49ers have had in recent years, it was DeForest Buckner, Eric Armstead, D4. I mean, they were really getting after guys. You still had DJ Jones, right? Like and Jones not being a huge sack guy, but those three guys, you were going to have a decent amount of sacks. Who's going to be who's going to be the fourth guy for the 49ers? Like, will it be, Collins? I mean, what if Collins?
Yeah. Malik Collins is gone.
4 sacks.
Well, Malik Collins is gone. So you have Alfred Collins.
Alfred Collins.
Yeah. So Malik Collins gone. You replace him with another Collins. He had 1 sack last year, Alfred Collins. CJ West had 2 sacks last year. Can
you get 7 sacks between those two guys?
They both got it. Yeah, they've both got to start to produce. Then you have Kevin Givens, who had 3.5. Yetur Gross-Matos had 4, but he might get Yetur might have to start.
He also had 3 in one game.
Yeah, and he might have to start rushing from the inside a little bit as well if Huff is in town now. And so I wonder what that might look like. Like if it's third and shorter, you might be run on still, so you can't have Huff in the game. So you keep Mykel Williams on the outside, or you move him in, bring in Yetur Gross-Matos to play either the 3-tech or the outside to try to give you some pass rush, but still play the run a little bit. Or do you go all the way interior? You have Kevin Givens at 3.5 sacks last year. You have Okuwanu as well. You suddenly have a lot more ends than you have tackles, especially guys that could give you some pressure. And then, Nick Martin, by the way, had the most sacks in a season in college of any of the 49ers draft picks. Nick Martin had 6 sacks his junior year, the year before he came out, which would have been more than any of the 49ers defensive linemen that they drafted in any of their college seasons. So little blitz packages as well. So don't sleep on Nick Martin's blitzing ability. Although we know that Robert Saleh likes to get home with 4.
I felt like the 49ers are going to have to depend on a lot of young guys. There's going to definitely be some transition there. But again, add a veteran guy like that has a specific niche in your defense and a specific role. I think it made me a little bit more optimistic with the defense. Just that one move.
Yep, you had to have.
You don't need the other guys to be so much more now than what they are currently.
And there's still going to be some projection with those rookies, but you had to add a veteran pass rusher, rotational guy, and that's Bryce Huff. And so they did. Croc, congrats on 4 years with the Locked On Podcast Network. Appreciate you joining me every single day. Appreciate all the listeners out there who join us every single day. Make sure you are subscribed on YouTube and everywhere you get your podcast. Hit the thumbs up if you're on YouTube. Let us know that you stopped by. Notification bell so you are notified when we go live so you don't miss an episode. And say hi in the YouTube comments. Make sure you subscribe to everywhere you get your podcasts. And here's to 4 more years. Hopefully we're still together doing this thing in 4 years. Right here, Locked On 49ers.